Ladies and gentlemen, this is what freedom looks like. This is what freedom sounds like. It's better for them to hear this sound than to hear the sound they'll hear if they try to take our weapons. You know, I said earlier at another event that I had the privilege of speaking to that this is not a white person's racist issue. People will use anything they possibly can to separate us. And one thing that I do agree with our president on is this is the United States of America. Not only is it the United States of America, but we also have a united right in our Constitution, and we won't let anybody take our Second Amendment right from us. It doesn't matter what you look like. Y'all see that precious little 14-year-old up here? I have 4 daughters, and I have the privilege of teaching all 4 of them how to shoot a weapon. And it's not just because I don't trust guys. But I'll share a story with you that I had a chance to share with another group of proud individuals that joined me down here on Lawyers Mall a couple weeks ago. This is why our Second Amendment rights are so important. I had a conversation with some Marines. As you all know, I am a Marine officer. Yeah, that's how we roll. There was another one up here a little bit ago. I started to give him a little head nod, let him know I'm with him. But he looked at me and we're sitting across and talking to a civilian, and he said, well, you know what? You really don't need an assault weapon to go hunting. And I agreed with him, Ken. You don't need an assault weapon to go hunting. But I said, imagine, if you will, just for a second, on that glorious day when our revolution was just about to start, as the most powerful army at that time, the British Redcoats, started making their way across the Atlantic. What if there'd been a bill passed that says, you know what? All you need is a bow and arrow to go hunting with.
That's right. That's right.
And as they made their way across with their muskets, with all we had were our bow and arrows, we would not be standing here with the privilege of the Second Amendment, or the greatest nation that the world has ever seen. I'll tell you what we had. We had munitions that were at least equivalent to our adversary and our enemies that were trying to come and take away our freedoms. Now, unless you are willing to make a global ban on assault weapons, which you're not willing to do that, I will not be giving up my assault weapons anytime soon. The Second Amendment, as Delegate Steve Shue said clearly, the Second Amendment is not about hunting. It's about ensuring that if any tyrannical government, any adversary, any enemy, any advocate of evil tries to make their way to my home down in Charles County, they'll be met with enough resistance to change their minds. So the civilian sat across from me and he looked at me and said, I can tell, Charles, you don't trust the government. Where'd you get that idea? I just believe in an old saying by a famous man that lived back in the 80s, trust but verify. Listen, I know I can't take too much of your time, but I want to share this story with you. I was deployed into Kosovo. That's how important your weapons are. And as I was making my way on my last round, I was just a lowly little platoon commander, a lieutenant. You know how you all feel about, well, I know I've got some military folks out there. Where you at? I know how y'all feel about lieutenants. Please excuse me, I was a lieutenant. I know you work for a living, and I was not a butterball. I was a first lieutenant, thank you very much. And now that I'm a major, I'll make you do push-ups, so keep it up. Anyway, I took one last patrol around as dusk was coming down in a little village called Cernica. And on my way around, before we took that patrol, there was a family that came, and some of y'all have heard this story, but it's worth repeating. There was a family that came on a horse and buggy that stopped and approached me at a checkpoint and said, there's something we want to give your Marines. I said, okay. So they said, it's in the back of our wagon now. Again, I'm a trust but verify guy. So I grabbed a couple of my munitions and a couple of my Marines. We walked over to the wagon. I said, why don't you lift that cart up? He lifted up, and there was a case of Coca-Colas. Can you imagine how that felt? I've been on MREs and water for a long time. I tell you what, I could care less if those Cokes were hot or not. I enjoyed one. Then I took the Cokes, we spread loaded them across. About an hour and a half later, I made my way down through a village. I got to cut this off, so I hurry up. And when we made our way around through a village, we ran up on this gentleman, the same one that gave us a case of Cokes, and he was looking at his home as it was demolished by his enemy at the time, tears coming down his cheeks. I looked at the gentleman. Of course, I'm a Christian, so I caved in with my principles, and I said, listen, what can we do to help you? His response was simple. If you would just, he said, I don't need your help. Just provide us a perimeter so I can begin a security perimeter so I can begin to rebuild my home for my family. That is an American spirit. That is an American attribute. That is the Constitution of our country. That is why we're here today, off work, to make a statement that under no means, no time, nowhere, I don't care what your rank is, whether you're governor, whether you're general, or whether you're a legislator, you will not take our Second Amendment of rights from us. We will bear and we will keep by any means necessary.
What happens when you make a plywood podium?
Good afternoon. My name's Tom Morris. I spent most of the last 19 years with the television show America's Most Wanted. I know a little bit about victims. I know a little bit about criminals. I know a lot about law enforcement. But this bill has nothing to do with keeping us safer. I hold in my hand a book that was given to me 3 years ago when we were doing stories in Chicago about the carnage on the streets there. I was working with a group called Purpose Over Pain, parents whose children have been murdered on the streets of Chicago, carnage that continues every day as we speak. This book is compiled by the Cook County State's Attorney's Office in Chicago. In it are the memories of relatives of murdered people. There are hundreds and hundreds. They compile this book every few years. Nothing ever changes. This book is compiled in a place where guns are illegal. Illegal. No one is supposed to have a pistol in Chicago. But the carnage continues. We cannot allow our guns and our ability to protect ourselves to be taken from us by ill thought out legislation which has nothing to do with our safety. There are so many absurd things in this bill that I was astounded when I read it. I knew that after New York's bill, Maryland legislators would try to one-up it. I knew that, and that is exactly what happened. There are so many things in there that are technically ridiculous, aesthetically absurd, and have nothing to do with what the law should be about. We have a mental health issue in this country. We do. There's no disputing that. But reducing and restricting our ability to defend ourselves is not going to help us in the state of Maryland or across this nation. In November, one of my neighbors, I live in a very good zip code, and I can tell you there are no safe zip codes in America. I've been to too many of them. My neighbor walked out of his house on his way to work. He goes to work at 4 in the afternoon. A carjacking had just occurred. Actually, it was an attempted armored car robbery. It just occurred in Langley Park. The robbers shot it out with the armored car guard, drove into Tacoma Park. My neighbor was coming out of his house to go to work. They saw him, ran up on him, shot him in the chest, and took his car. He had no ability to defend himself, but he couldn't have even had the right to defend himself, more than likely as an ordinary citizen in Maryland.
That's right.
Outside of his home. So today we're here because we don't want to be insane or fanatical. We want to be rational. We want to make a logical argument to our legislators about this bill and about what should be common sense as opposed to hysteria that fuels a mass grab of all of our weapons, because that is what this is amounting to. So I'm glad you're here today. Make your point rationally. You don't need to scream about you're coming to take my guns. Look at the bill. Look at what's in it. Challenge the things in it that do not make sense. Do what you can do to get your point across as a reasonable, rational American. Hysteria will not help us. It's a silly season we're in. We are in a major silly season, but it's a deadly serious season. So make your arguments passionately, but make them logically. I'm glad to be here today. God bless you all. God bless the state of America. And I leave you with 3 words. John Moses Browning.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to wrap up here today, but what I wanted to do first and foremost was on behalf of all the organizations that are putting this together today to thank you. Maryland Shall Issue, National Rifle Association, Associated Gun Clubs of Baltimore, Maryland State Rifle and Pistol Association, and I can't even remember all of the other dozens of organizations who we've worked with in the last couple of weeks to put this thing together. Remember, we did this in about 10 days. But I want to make sure that you understand this is not day 10. This is day 1. You're going to walk over to that building and you're going to tell these people your story. What I want you to do is I want you to tell them your story. I don't want to talk about what happened 5 years ago, 10 years ago in this legislature. Today is day 1, and we have to walk this thing forward. We need them to understand that you, as a resident, as a citizen of this state, have rights, and you expect those rights to be honored. You expect your Constitution to be protected, and that they are here to do those things for you. And if they don't do them for you, we will find someone who will. I want you to tell them you will be in their primaries. Primaries are critically important in Maryland. We'll be in their primaries. We will be at their town halls. We will be in their offices. You know, we got a lot of time here today. Stop by the office of your lawmaker and say, hey, I just want 5 minutes to tell you my story, 1-to-1. And if you can't do it today, come back tomorrow. Come back next week. We're going to have more hearings in the future. Today is day 1. We need to keep working. They expect that the emails, the phone calls, the visits, the people, I've actually heard them say it, they expect them to stop tomorrow morning. I've looked them in their face and said, you don't understand. We're just warming up. We're at the appetizer stage. All right, so a little bit of logistics, instructions. This building right out over here is the Senate office building. You're going to head in, all right? Those of you who've already signed up for testimony, please do so. Please understand that you're going to be called. There's an overflow room. Please enjoy it. You cannot record in the actual committee room. You can record in the overflow rooms. All right? I just want to make sure that we don't cause any issues. If someone gives you a hard time, please cooperate. Work with them and find one of us. All right? We're going to help you out. Next thing is, in terms of testifying, there is a rumor floating around that due to all the people here, they're keeping the list open for people to put their name down. Please, if you haven't done so, go on over. You're going to get 2 to 3 minutes. Say your piece, say your words, stand up, tell them your story.
Clarify if there's one sign-up sheet.
The question is there one sign-up sheet? Things are fluid, things are changing. All right, so go on over. We'll have people at the door. We're going to help you figure this out. We're still trying to figure it out. We're negotiating with the committee chairman right now how things are going to go. I want to leave you with this thought. Today is day 1. We have at least a few more weeks to make our impression, and beyond that, we have 2014. Let them know we're here and we're not leaving. God bless you. God bless America. Thank you to our lawmakers.